Council meeting to order. Motion to accept the agenda. Callahan and Vauden, all in favor? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest, if any. None noted. There's, in the agenda, there's an amendment of postponing 3.1, and there's a 0.6 from Fire Department of North Huron. Okay. Reeves report, it was a lengthy public meeting that we just finished having, but very nice to have things moving forward, to have our official plan updated, so that moving to reading the minutes of the previous meeting, November 18th, McGowan and Biden. All in favor? Carried. Deputations. Connie, do you want to introduce this deputation, please?
Sure. I'm sure most of you are familiar with most of the members here of the Friends of the North Huron Museum. They are here this evening to give an update on what they have been doing this past year. So in attendance is Peter Gray, Bill Farnell, Verna Stumpler, Luke Ho, and Dixie Lee Arbuckle. And they are, as you know, they are a group that gets things done, and we're going to hear about it tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Connie. All right, as Connie says, we're just going to give a little 10-minute demonstration of where we've come from, where we are today, and hopefully our future plans. It should roughly be a 10-minute presentation. Very informal. Feel free to answer questions as I go through it. There will be time to answer questions at the end of the presentation, but again, it's informal. If you have a question, just shout it out. I'm not that shy. Some of the current successes. One of the reasons I am the one speaking tonight, and not some more senior members of this group, is that I am new. I joined the Friends of the North Huron Museum about 2 months ago. So I see things with a little different eye as some of the people who have been here for a few years. So Bill approached me and asked if I would actually be the presenter of this meeting, just so I get the fresh eyes and see what's going on. So one of the things that I see as a real current success is the Alice Munro exhibit and presentations. Maria, you want to quickly elaborate on this, please? You got 1 minute.
I know. 1 minute. So I wrote everything down. And the first thing I want to say is, I don't think there's anybody that has done more for tourism in this town than Alice Munro. Because between our garden to begin with and now the Nobel Prize, we've had more than enough people coming to visit the museum and the garden. I have met and put in 32 hours myself just meeting with press. We had press from as far away as Sweden and Russia. And I have no idea how many other hours that Connie put in with people as well. But we've had a lot of people come from a lot of different areas as far away as Ottawa and so on. And so what the Friends decided to do, if people were coming and the museum was closed, for the month of November, we took on being at the museum Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And we did. We had quite a few people. I had a few calls as well for people wanted to have a tour on a Saturday and so on. So we've really had a big number of people, and I'm not going to be surprised if come spring it increases again. Because a lot of times right now the weather hasn't been that wonderful, but a lot of people have said, oh, I think I'll be back in the spring and have more time. We've actually had people giving us donations. I've had 2 lots of complete sets of Alice's books given to us, which is a big help because we didn't have all of them. We've got at least 2 now of every one of her books, a lot of the soft-covered books, and the ones that we have, the hardcovers, every one of them have been autographed by Alice. So I hope you people all turn out next Sunday as well. That's not through Friends of the Museum, but we are participating because Lou and I are putting a display about think she's really put, wait a minute. Did I get it in time?
Better than that. The George Reed presentations. Lou, you want to comment on this, please?
George Agnew Reed was born in 1860 in East Wawanosh to a pioneer farming family. Part of the family were the 6 children. During his 87 years of an acting artist, he produced over 900 pieces of fine art. He designed and built dozens of buildings, schools, libraries, and municipal buildings. He decorated the interior of many of Toronto's municipal buildings with murals depicting early discovery of our country and pioneer life. He taught for 3 decades art students in Ontario. This year, 2013, the Friends of the North Huron Museum decided to take on as a project the complete research of his life, the visitation of as many of the 35 sites that have housed his work as we could, the development of a display in the library for everybody to enjoy, and the presentation to community groups of the story of George Reed and the visit to the museum itself. Currently, the National Gallery of our country is doing a 3-month show called Artists, Architects, and Artisans, and I spent 5 hours with that show, housed in 11 rooms in our National Gallery, and a 1-hour evening performance given by the curator of the Canadian collection, and there was no artist mentioned more often in the exhibition or the in the lecture than George Agnew Reed.
Thank you. Thanks to the Library Museum Cooperation. About a month ago, when I first volunteered, I noticed Bill was working with some of his members about doing an exhibit at the library. He asked me to do a Remembrance Day one at the library since I'm ex-military. I thought that was very nice of him to ask. Why I put this in, because I think it's very important that different aspects of this community get involved with each other, the library with the museum, and vice versa. People who might not go to the museum would go to the library. They would see an exhibit. It says North Huron Museum. They might entice them to come and see some of our extra exhibits we have. So I think it's a good cooperation we have between both organizations. Main meeting room organization. Again, here's another success I think the volunteers have done. We are obviously limited what we can do with this main floor because it is used as a public gallery. People can rent and use it all the time they wish. So we're limited to do what we can do basically with the wall. We can't have any large displays in the middle of the room like many museums do have. But I think that the core group of volunteers have done a great job illustrating through pictures and photographs a history of both Wingham and the surrounding communities with the limited space and some of the challenges that they had. They've done a great job doing that, I think. Second floor displays. Again, I've heard the stories of what the volunteers walked into 5 years ago. And if anybody who's come to the museum and seen the second floors, they've done a very good representation of some of the first rural life, some medical offices, some parlors. They have a military display, which hopefully I can revamp somewhat in the future. But they've come a long way in the last few years. Core group of volunteers. And I'm going to stress that point throughout this presentation. Without the core group of volunteers, in my opinion, with the new eyes, the museum across the street would not exist. They're the ones who put in the hours. They're the ones who do stuff. Sometimes with no thank you. They do it because they love the museum, they love their community.
I'd like to just mention that Dixie Lee counted up the hours for 2013 as of mid-November, and 15 volunteers have put in 1,292 hours this year so far. We'll probably put in another 100.
Next, thank
On
you.
that point on.
education. Bill, do you want to touch on that, please?
Yes, another objective we had when we started 5 years ago, although we knew this one would be sort of at the end, was to create educational programs. So we've done 3 programs so far, most of them last year in the summertime, or in June. June of last year, we created a curriculum-based grade 3 program on pioneers. We had 3 different grade 3 classes from Maitland Elementary accompany us. We had about 60 children through. In fact, we've already had calls to see if we're going to be offering it again. We had another program ready, junior grades, grade 4, 5, and 6, a general visit to the museum. We called it the Magic and Mystery of the Museum. No takers. We'll try again next year. And we've also had 2 grade 10 history classes through when we were promoting Jeff Hollenbeck's military histories.
Thank you. Some of the challenges, again, the volunteers could jump in. This is some of my observations, again, of this trust, with new eyes, looking at the museum from a different perspective. Current inventory control. I think that inventory needs to be handled more properly. There are aspects of that museum, the 3rd floor, I will touch on that later on, needs to be controlled. There are things, I don't think anybody can jump in and say they know exactly what is in that building. Coming from an inventory background, that is a big concern. I think we need to, it would be one of our biggest challenges. Ties into 3rd floor cleanup, both of them kind of speak to each other. The 3rd floor, again, in my opinion, has been somewhat of a storage unit for many years. We need to get a handle on that. We need to go through that and determine what is significant for this community and the surrounding areas. If it's a broken piece of a farm handle and has no significance to this area, we need to look at what we're going to do with that. That will be discussed at this meeting. That's some for the other time. Preservation of artifacts. This has come to light about a week ago when they found white mold, I believe, one piece of the leather.
Yes, it was discovered up on 3rd floor, and we know that we're going to have to deal with that. So our questions as a group of friends is, number one, how do we do that? I've done a little bit of research. It isn't expensive, however, it is time consuming. So how do we clean it? Who cleans it? And when do we clean it? The wintertime is the best time to take care of white mold because it's a slow-growing mold. The other issue is, I've been reading you need a ventilated area, so I'm not quite sure what we'll do there, or masks. That's something we need to consider soon.
Fundraising. This is something I think is an ongoing challenge. We all have to look at our fiscal responsibilities, and I think fundraising is very important for this museum. We can't always rely on handouts. We come up and we have another slide that shows some creative ideas. Hopefully we can generate some benefit. Data entry and cataloging kind of ties in with the inventory control. They've done a great job in the last few years. It's still a long way to go. I've gone to the museum and picked up artifacts, and there's no category number on it whatsoever, which means within the system, it may or may not even exist. I think that's a problem that goes back to inventory control.
And I'd like to also say we had an amazing summer student, Hannah Newsom, and we literally have about 400 items to catalog, to put into the computer. That's why we have data entry in. It'll be a major piece of work for volunteers. Whoever.
Revenue generating ideas. This is some brainstorming that the volunteers did. It's just some ideas. I want everyone in this room to understand that we do respect the fact that it does cost money for this museum. We understand everything from maintaining the building, maintaining some of the preservation of artifacts. It all costs money, and I want everyone to understand we do respect that. So some of our ideas are fees for research, and volunteers jump in if I'm incorrect on some things. We currently do not charge for research. If you come to our museum and ask us to research where your house was built, who built it, some old Texans, we don't charge for that. And this could take days, weeks to research these requests by individuals. We don't charge for this. Most museums do. Use of the archives. Again, most museums charge for this. We don't. You are allowed to come to our museum when it's open, go into our archives, go through the archives, go through the documents, and research yourself, free of charge. Rent of main hall. I do know the main hall of the museum is used for a variety of reasons. If there's an opportunity, we can rent that. I currently work for our Legion Branch 180. It doesn't matter what organization it is, we rent the hall to you. It's not giving for free, it's not a charitable organization. Just something to consider. Barbecues and yard sales, again, is kind of a standby that I notice you guys do, and do a good job. I think we can expand on that, perhaps do it more often, have a little better yard sales. But museum memberships, this is something one of the members brought to my attention. I've actually been to the Imperial War Museum in London. You actually get a membership if you want to join the museum. It costs like $25 or 18 pounds. You can join the museum, you get on a newsletter. It works for larger museums, but just an idea that you might be able to incorporate in a smaller one. How to look to the future. Collections, review, and committee. Again, this goes back to inventory control. We need to go through our existing inventory to see what is relevant to the museum and what's not. Obviously, at our level, we can't decommission anything from someone we could bring forth to Connie, go through the chain of command and understand what we do with these items. Third floor organization is probably the biggest one that I see. The building is what it is. It is damp, it's drafty, there are many challenges to the structure that I see from the third floor aspect. But there are things in boxes that I don't think most people know about. I think we need to get in there as volunteers, go through it all, lay it out, see exactly what we have. Fundraising and grant writing. I've discussed some things we can do for fundraising. Grant writing, I think Lou had mentioned that we need to do a better job at networking ourselves to find out what other museums are doing, large and small. There might be things we're missing. I know we have some great staff that's already walked us through this process, but I still think there's more to do. Short and sweet. Any questions?
Rob?
One other comment that I would bring up, or thing to consider, is acquisition policy and procedures, which leads me to a second point. When we moved back to this area a number of years ago, we donated a number of items that came really from the Thunder Bay area, the Finnish community. And one of the things that we mentioned at the time that we left these things, that maybe this isn't of much interest locally, but you could maybe make a deal with a community up north for money or for exchange. And so that would be another kind of thing to consider as a possible revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important that you don't just accept everything that people bring in, but it should follow a policy statement. You don't like to say to somebody, no, this is worthless, take it away.
Maybe you could speak.
You already have passed a motion to that regard,
Oh, good.
and you will only accept donations to the museum that are historical significance to North Huron.
And which is great. Unfortunately, in the past, we've inherited some issues, so we need to go through and quick one. Any other questions?
Rooney?
Oh, sorry.
You were talking about inventory and what you don't need, you may toss out or do something with. Myself and my family in the 80s give milk bottles to you guys. If you're going to throw them out, I'd like to put them back in my collection. Right now I have about 300 on display right now, along with many other memorabilia from our dairy. It was the last processing dairy here in county. It was the second last processing dairy in all of southwestern Ontario. There are no more. They're just truck drivers now. So please do not throw those bottles.
Nothing will be thrown away.
But you bring up a good point. Nowhere in the presentation did I mention throwing anything out, but you made a good point. What you have donated to the museum has historical significance to this area. But if I find a milk bottle from Michigan, it has no significance to this museum. So then we have to go through the powers that be to determine, are we keeping this? Your collection obviously has significance, so it doesn't fall in this category.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Not a question, but a comment. I think we want to congratulate all of you and thank you all for the work you've done. I know there's been a small core group that have done an enormous amount of work over the years, over the last 15, 16 years. I think Vern has been involved right from the start, but it's nice to see a more vibrant group getting together now and looking at things with fresh eyes, as you've said, Peter, and bringing up good questions and good comments about how we can plan for the future together. I'm glad to see so much interest in the museum again, and I like the fact that you're expanding into the schools again. because I think it's important for those children to get into the museum and learn the local history.
We're even willing to go into schools. That's another option as
Traveling,
well,
right.
because busing is an expense, so we've considered that as well. We haven't done much with that, but that's for the future.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of council and especially myself, thank you very much for all the work you do on it, because while I'm not there that often, I do realize the amount of work it is in cataloging and putting displays together and one thing and another, so that it's a great resource to have people interested and so dedicated as yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, guys.
Could
Appreciate
I
it.
just end with one quote? This came from the back of a book I had on volunteerism. It just says, "There is nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer. With it beats the spirit of generosity and compassion, and the health and well-being of our community, our country, and our world." Get out of your way.
Come visit us any day,
Well,
we're open.
Your Worship, I was going to see if there's some opportunity if council before a meeting could come over and go through. It's been a few years.
Sure,
since
we'd
I've
love
been
to.
through.
Do you want to set up?
We'd like to do that, I think, would be good for all of us. And it would be good to work on an action
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Every attic has one, but I've got to find them.
Okay, moving to business arising from previous meetings, is there anything the councillors might want to bring back? Okay, moving to department reports, health and safety meeting, self-explanatory. Moving right to point 3, Director of Recreational Facilities. No, that's been postponed. Moving to Director of Finance. Point 1, the Roma special underwriting. Donna will answer questions if anybody has them.
I'll just give you a brief update on this. Especially the East Wawanosh representatives will be aware, back in the early days, 1998, 1999, and 2000, East Wawanosh was took part in a reciprocal insurance exchange. And the idea back in those days was that the premiums would be lower, and therefore you wouldn't have as many costs. So what has happened though, as that reciprocal was underfunded all those years, and so now we're having all the final retroactive assessments coming out. So since amalgamation in my time here, we have actually made a couple of lump sum payments to this organization, and as it says in the letter, it is winding down now, and the statement that I put in your package was as at December 2012. So in order to wind up the former East Wawanosh Ward share in this, we could be looking at one final payment of between $3,500 and $10,000 on this. So we wouldn't have to pay this until 2015, and I'm not sure where in between there that number is going to lie. So just want to make sure that you're aware of it. We won't have to address it in 2014. But hopefully we'll have the final amount before year end, and then we can plan on how we're going to deal with that. So I don't know if anybody has any further questions. We've talked about this a few times over the years, but it's usually about 3 years apart before we have any further information.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
Okay.
Moving on to the tax write-offs, the list.
Right, so the write-off list was in your agenda package. The two main items there are the County of Huron passed a bylaw some years ago, and they've been under that procedure for many years to write off the county and education portions of the local regions. And since we have the two, then our municipality then also has to give the authority to write off the municipal portion of the tax bill for both legions. Also, the Blythe Legion had a small supplemental bill for additional work in 2012, and so that is also part of the numbers that are included on your page. And one last cleanup item is from 2011, we were still finishing up, there was a Tiffin property that the municipality bought, as I said, back in 2011, and there was a small amount left owing on that once the property is now exempt like any other municipal property, but we needed to clean that up as well, so that is on the listing also. So I would require a motion for that, and as I said, we do that yearly.
McGowan and Bailey moving and seconding. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, moving to point 3, the letter from concerning BM Ross with water and sewer rates and policy review.
Right, so back in 2008, we undertook a complete review of our water and sewer service charges and some of the items that we had on go at that time, and that was the implementation of the $10 a month for our dedicated reserves for capital replacement. Since that time, a number of things have happened. We've had to implement in 2011 our financial report for sustainability, asset management, our development charges, and of course the ongoing DWQMS issues. So as part of also recently you've had a number of discussions around your rates and what those rates should be and could be and what sort of money we need for putting away for the future. But this would actually be a bit more, it's not really just the rate review portion is just a small part of this. Actually, the lion's share of this review would be like basically a strategic planning exercise for water and sewer. And so it would give us a complete policy manual to cover all sorts of things that we have to deal with, and it would repeal and replace a lot of the old bylaws and consolidate everything into one document. So BM Ross has given us a price here, and it is $34,000. If council did go ahead with that, that would be split amongst water and sewer. And the estimated time frame in this letter is given as June of 2014. So Dawn, I don't know if you have anything further that you want to add in here, or
no, other than the main policy document that we're operating under. Like it needs updated. Like it's a 3-page thing that basically prescribes the rules that we operate under. So it's so we definitely need some more definitions on what we do and how we do it, and this should clear that up.
Rock.
I'm wondering if we ought to wait until we have settled some of the cross-border servicing arrangements. Would that make a difference in this policy?
all of that would get incorporated in here at the point that that was all solved as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Ernie?
Just a couple of things. One, are you suggesting we put this on the budget for next year? Number two, I think we shouldn't invite Morris Turnberry to sit down with us about these, because as we move forward, we're becoming more and more linked. And I don't think, if need be, I think a conversation should happen with them. Not just ram it down their throat because they're dependent on us.
Councilor McGowan, on this?
Well, I would suggest that this is a review of our water policies. It doesn't, I don't necessarily concur about you know, I can see once you get into a draft, reviewing it with them, but I don't see, like, it would be our study. And I don't think it's going to interfere with anything to do with Morris Turnberry, to be quite honest. I don't see that that's necessarily,
And when the water and sewer is its own animal rather than part of the budget, I don't think it really concerns the budget all that much, does it, Don?
No, and the only thing that, and they're kind of tied together, is that we, both Morris Turnberry and us have kind of reciprocal use bylaws, like especially for the water, because they have one for Belgrave, and we mutually agreed that both of them will be basically in harmony with one another. So that will have to be looked at when they do these policies anyway, because that's entrenched in our current agreement anyway.
So they will be involved.
Yeah, indirectly.
so just to back up a little bit, about concern about the budget, and Councillor Bailey is wanting to review this during budget time. I, for one, have a bit of sticker shock, and I was here for the last study, and wasn't entirely pleased with the process and the timelines. And so, I mean, it's a lot of money, $34,000. I think it needs to be done, but I would like to hear options on competing pricing. Here.
Just on that, there has been some staff discussion about splitting this study into a couple of parts. Did you want to speak to that, Tom?
Well,
There's the rate study, and then there's the kind of the strategic review.
Yeah, and I could go back and get further information on that to see where the costs lie. If there is, we could have it separated out into more or less the rate part of it, and then the development of the policy manual, which is basically the bigger part of it, as far as my view would be.
Well, and I realized the last time the study that we did and we undertook was a rate study that Matt took care of for us. But again, I just want to be clear, I, for one, who was here when that study was done, was not happy with the timeframes. It got pushed back, and it got pushed back, and it got pushed back. And, you know, I don't think that a rate study should take that long. And I think whatever time frames that council sets, those should be the parameters, and that's it. But again, I would like to see, this is $34,000 for a lot of work that I don't disagree needs to be done. It's been, how long's it been since the last rate study? 8 years?
Well, 2000.
Yeah, so 2008. So it's been quite a while, and I know that you know, our engineer had said that our rates were falling behind some municipalities, perhaps, that we were more, they needed to be investigated to make sure that we were keeping up with what our requirements were from operational point of view as well as capital point of view, and then doing long-range planning. So it's an important document to get. I just would like to make sure that we're getting the most efficient use to get that study.
Any other comments or questions?
So do we need a motion on this?
If the treasurer, Donna, is going to pull out some more information, I would think that go till the next meeting to see what more information will do, whether it can be easily split into two or whether it should be left as one. So that is direction to staff, if that's okay.
Do you want a tabling motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll also move.
And Vaughn seconds. All in favor? Carried. Moving to the utility department, Don?
Okay, my report largely was informational. There's just some updates as far as the draft environmental assessment report. Just in this past week here, we've resolved basically the landfill question I had as far as it impacting if we put a commercial well in the arena site, and it's basically a negligible risk. It's far enough away just with the groundwater flow and so forth. So that was got some confidence with that, and they've kind of rescored as far as the storage method for there. So hopefully by the end of this week we'll have that final report done. And just an update, so we've got the well 3, the variable frequency drive on hand. It's hopefully going to be installed this week. The programming's done for it, and once that's done, we'll hook it up to the old well pump and give it a test, and then we'll be ready for the new well pump. And the last thing, there's 3 reports that are posted on our website, 2 of them being the MOE inspection reports, and the 3rd one is the surveillance audit report from SAI. So all those are available for anybody who wishes to look at them. And that was basically it.
Okay, that we need a motion to the Council of North Huron hereby accept the report of the Chief Operator as presented. Deputy Reeve Reach, Councillor Campbell. All in favor? Carried. Okay, moving to point 6, Fire Department of North Huron. David?
You know, in the fall when I said that the first council meeting of the month I'd give you a report for the previous month, I didn't realize that in December that'd give me 1 business day to have my report done. But anyway, you'll find my reports here. There'll be a few, I'll put them on the table there for anyone else that may care for them. I'll pass them in the extras. Just a couple of sort of highlight notes. First one is under public education. Not a big expense, but I think an encouraging sign. FDNH and Morris Turnberry agreed to work together to have 4 signs available for display in our municipal buildings or when Santa Claus is at the fire station, just reminding people about Christmas fire safety. And I think it's an encouraging sign that we're able to work together and do joint ventures on stuff like that. And those signs were out Friday, Saturday. The other thing I'd like to highlight is under the notable section. Another good thing, but it will have an impact on our fire department, and that is the Hawkins, and I've heard it pronounced umpteen different ways, but the Hawkins-Gignac Act, which requires carbon monoxide alarms in all residences that are going to have gas appliances or attached garages. This legislation is 5 years in the making, so we sometimes think the wheels of municipal governments turn slowly. This took 5 years of effort to get it through. In Ontario, over the last decade, 250 people have died from carbon monoxide poisoning. So it's reasonable to assume that, based on that number, that over the last 5 years, 125 people have died while this legislation has been going through the motions. What this really means for the fire department is that the province is going to put this under the Fire Prevention and Protection Act, which means we'll be responsible as a fire department for enforcement. Carbon monoxide alarms have a life expectancy of 7 years. Smoke alarms have a life expectancy of 10 years. And we're anticipating this will increase the number of false alarm carbon monoxide calls we get. At the same time, it's obviously going to save lives in the province, and we think it's a great idea. When this is going to actually come to effect, the province is committed to make this effective as quickly as they can. But at this point, we have no date. But certainly in the coming years, we're going to see this, and we think it's a good thing. Beyond that, you'll see the summary of our fire calls for the month. A reflection of the fact that winter came a little bit early would be reflected in the fire calls that occurred. A fairly busy month, but and as per usual, a map on the back of where we went in the last month. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Any new business? Okay. Moving to council information, council will bring forward information for discussion.
I wonder if we shouldn't be supporting on number 9, the township is requesting a change for the police building. It's going to start for 2015 for the OPP.
Gary?
That's certainly a political decision, but I just wanted to add that the Director of Finance and myself are looking at having a conference call with OPP officials in the next couple of weeks to confirm the amount for North Huron in 2014. So I see that just as way of background.
So we are anticipating a cost increase, just like everybody else, although we don't have any contracts with them to speak of.
That has not been confirmed. But there is a new funding formula, and we want to discuss that with them and confirm the amount in the 2014 budget.
And maybe bring that back to us, and we'll discuss the same thing at another time. How's that?
That would be relatively under direction. Brock?
With respect to item number 6, the Southwest Economic Alliance, opening up the opportunity to have a regional research chair at the University of Guelph on economic development in southwestern Ontario. I've written to the president of SWEA and told him about our exciting development in the 14-19 campaign, and he wasn't aware of this, but I think it's pretty exciting to compare a 250,000 campaign in a large regional project to a project in the little village of Bly. 6 million.
Okay, but if there's nothing else, do we have a motion to receive, read, and file? Wyden and Reach? All in favor of the motion? And when there was nothing listed specifically, that includes correspondence?
Yes.
Okay. Moving to committee reports, the Bly BIA minutes from November 6th. Is there any questions on that, or anything else you would like to add, Dave?
Nothing to add.
Okay, moving to point 2, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority minutes of October 16th. Any questions or anything you want to add, James?
I was just looking through it. They're looking at starting the proposed carbon footprint for the amount of carbon that you would use, like say the municipality, and that would be, they could take that and plant trees to use that amount of carbon. It's something new that's just coming out, and I know that Maitland Valley supports this very highly, and all the directors are going to actually support this themselves and try and figure out, they have a scale that you can figure out how much carbon you burn to drive to meetings and all this kind of stuff. And all the directors are going to plant trees to replace that carbon that we have produced. So it's something new. But
Not replace, sequester.
Well, yes, but it's something that it's going to be a big thing.
Okay.
If there's any other questions, I'll try and answer them.
Okay, doesn't look like there's any. Moving to point 3, North Huron Police Services Board, meeting of November 19th. Is there any questions or further comments?
Just going to say, Your Worship, from the minutes, the Red Ribbon campaign has begun in the community jointly with the OPP and the North Huron Police Service. as well as you will note in the report, there was the final report on the SIU investigation with regards to arrest, and the officer was cleared of any wrongdoing. Actually said he had acted absolutely appropriately with regards to the August 30th arrest. The other thing I want to bring up to council is the council will need to consider a council appointee for the new year, and that whatever methodology council wishes to use to attract applicants for that, we should move that ahead, as Chair Enders will be done at the end of this year, and we will need to fill that vacancy sometime in the new year.
Okay, but how soon do we need that? Because if we're looking at getting it done in a reasonable amount of time, should we start advertising for those interested?
It might be something.
And would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I can make that motion.
Seconder? Reach seconds. Any discussion on that? All in favor of the motion?
Just the last thing I would mention, Your Worship, is we did swear in our newest provincial appointee, Robert Milton, last month's meeting, so he has taken his seat on the board and will be there for the next 2 years, I believe, is his first appointment.
Okay, thank you. Moving to point 4, Wingman Area Health Professional Recruit Committee. Is there any questions? Okay. Moving to point 5, Wingham BIA, minutes November 21st. Anything you want to add, Bernie, or?
Actually, yes.
Is there any questions from others?
Yes, I would like to add the fact that the BIA is coming to its first year in. It's been quite a successful year. We've done a lot for the community. We have put $500 down towards the youth school playground, $400 towards Alice Monroe, $440 towards the doctor's appreciation. The cleanup crew that went around the main street did a fantastic job. They were all volunteers. We have put much money aside for different projects we're working on, and we're all looking forward to next year.
Thank you. Let's move to bylaws. Bylaw number 72, 2013, being a bylaw to adopt a code of conduct for members of council.
First, second, third.
Thank Councillor McGowan and Councillor Bailey. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 73, 2013, being a bylaw to adopt amendment number 9 to the official plan for the Township of North Huron. Reach and Hallahan. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Council reports and inquiries.
Your Worship, I just want to bring to council's attention, about a week ago we had the Sports Wall of Fame ceremony, which was extremely well attended at the complex. There was a number of inductees, and I just received this card this evening, so I thought I'd read it to council. It's from Mrs. Helen West. She was one of the inductees. I want you and council to know how very much I enjoyed the induction ceremony last Friday. Rochelle, Gary, and the complex staff were very, very friendly and helpful. The ceremony itself went off like clockwork, and the wall is like a town history. What a great idea that is. The building does the town proud, especially because it is so well looked after and offers so many uses. I was quite flattered to be inducted, and my time in Wingham Friday was an excellent visit. Sincerely, Helen West. P.S. Our post-ceremony meal at Grumpy's drew rave reviews.
Okay, thank you. Other councillors? Councillor Deputy Reeve Reach.
At our last meeting, there was a complaint about the snow removal of the sidewalks in Wingham. And after the snowfall this week, or last week, I took the time and I drove around through Wingham, and I want to commend the snowplow operators and the sidewalk cleaning. Pretty much all of the east-west sidewalks are clean, and all the sidewalks around the school and around the hospital are clean. And I think that our township staff are doing an excellent job. And I also want to make one negative comment on all of this is when I was driving over in the west side of town, I saw two people throwing snow from their driveway onto the sidewalks after the sidewalks had been cleaned. So, but I just want to say thank you to the township staff, because I think that they get a lot of negative response to it, and I think they're doing a very good job, particularly around the school and the hospital.
Here, here.
Anything?
Your worship, I wondered, I had the Director of Public Works was working on a little project. I wondered if he could report on that. With regards to sidewalks. Little research project.
Just enlighten me on that.
And we were doing research on how other municipalities were handling sidewalks.
Well, yeah,
I wonder, could you give a short synopsis of
Actually,
what
we
you
were on the
said?
radio this morning, and we gave a little bit of an update on our sidewalks, and we talked a little bit about what other communities do for sidewalk removal. And I think Deputy Reach was correct in saying that other communities do have their residents clean the sidewalks in front of their places, but here in Wingham, or North Huron, we don't do that. We are cleaning the sidewalks that are designated routes to be cleaned.
And just on that, the director mentioned to me that in the Wingham ward, there's 32 kilometers of sidewalk, and we're cleaning 20 kilometers for snow removal. That's correct.
Yeah.
Useful information. Is there anything else from council? Dave?
We've talked for the last number of years about developing Hutton Heights and the cost of getting water and sewer hookups out there. I wonder if it would be prudent to have our chief operator do a cost study on the cost of drilling a well and putting water service out in Hutton Heights as opposed to running a water line from Wingham out.
Your worship, if it's my recollection is correct, and you've been around for quite a while as well, what I recall was that the county said that when that got to be there was going to be substantially more development, that they were going to require it be hooked into municipal services. And as such, I mean, I understand where Deputy Reach is coming from, but I don't think we're looking at a scenario where we can just pop a well and let everybody start hooking in. I think from my recollection was that the MOE would step in at some point and say, you need to be on a municipal water system to meet the treatment requirements and everything else. Now that was quite a few years ago, and we haven't had that happen, but I'm kind of suspicious that, I'd hate for him to waste a lot of time looking into something that's not even an option. And maybe Don can speak to that more anyway.
But I think Deputy Reed wants to maybe elaborate a little more.
In the Economic Development Committee, we've talked about more industrial land for the Wingham ward and East Wawanosh and in Blythe. And when I come onto council 4 years ago, the cost of running water from Wingham out to the Hutton Heights was going to run in the range of $750,000. Now the cost of the engineering and so on, and the latest cost that I heard is over $2 million. And so if we're going to develop our land south of town in East Wawanosh and then particularly in Hutton Heights and have more industrial land available, we have to have the water and sewer available. And it's going to be really, really difficult to develop industrial land if we don't have the services available. So we know what it will cost to run a water line out, but we don't know what it would cost to drill a well and have a standalone water system? And would there be an advantage to having a standalone water system? And would it increase development potential there?
So could I ask a question through you, Your Worship, to the Director of Utilities? Don, what would the MOE's take be on that, on just doing a standalone well? Like, they would require there'd still be treatment requirements. So you have to put some kind of a treatment system in on that side.
Yes, yeah, they would require, yeah, the full treatment of that, which would probably be some kind of iron sequestering and chlorination would be the extent of that.
Okay. I mean, I'm all right with investigating it. I just, we're going to have to hit some of the standards anyway. But I mean, I do think we need to get some prices to compare to. So I'm not disagreeing with Deputy Reed at all.
Councillor Biden first.
I recall when we were talking about this some time ago, probably 2 years ago, there was talk of if we were developing Hutton Heights, there was a possibility of building another road westerly through to Highway 86 for access to Hutton Heights. And the question that I raised at that time was, if you can build a road, maybe you could put the water and sewer lines through there without having to do all of the work that is being anticipated through the floodplain and the river. So I'm just wondering if that's worth a consideration along with these other broader questions.
Yeah, I guess my first take on that is that in some ways it may be easier just to go through the floodplain because it's basically you need approval from Maitland Valley to do it, but it's vacant land basically, and the high pressure gas line, there's really nothing there that would hinder just open trenching the water main. You'd have to directional drill under the river, but I think that probably would be the best solution along that London Road.
I believe at this point in time it would be premature and a waste of money to do anything with that, as in our conversation this morning at the Industrial Development Committee. We did have this conversation, but there's many other things that have to take place first. Maybe Gary would like to elaborate on it, but I believe it's very premature to talk about any of this at this point in time. Would you like to?
I guess whatever the council consensus is. If council wants the director to look at options and costing for various types of servicing, we'll do that. We'll take our direction.
I'll redo that then. I think it's premature to spend the money on anything that you want to go out there until you know what you're doing out there. It would not be feasible just to go out and deliver water and sewer to the units that are out there now. They have not asked for it to begin with. Nobody's asking for it. I would not want to see us waste our money at this time. Not to say that it wouldn't be worthwhile in the future.
Okay, Dave?
I don't think it's a waste of time to investigate costs. It takes some staff time, I appreciate that. But I'm sure that if we have an industry that wants to come, or if we have development that wants to come, and we don't know, then we have to start from scratch, and we're going to be 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, like we already are. And we're not going to go ahead. Where if we know what the costs are, if we know what our options are, then we're one step ahead and we can give answers to possible development going in that area. Or we can sit on it and wait until somebody comes along and says, well, can you get water and sewer out there, and then start looking into it. Let's be proactive.
If I might, it actually won't be that much work because we've already done a lot of this work for upgrading the Blythe well system, and really it'll be the same type of thing, the environmental assessment, the engineering, that test well, the treatment, so it should be very similar.
Richard?
Through you, maybe just for some clarification to Councillor Bailey, I wonder if you could sort of elaborate a little bit on what he perceives will be the downside of just putting some rough numbers together. Like, is there something where we don't know, or from this committee?
We're looking at the possibility of putting an industrial site out beyond Hutton Heights. So at this point in time, I'm thinking it's a waste of money, because if you were to price out the piping it would take and the size of piping for the users that are there now, then you may have to redo it for an industrial lot, acres of industrial lots that we may want to sell. On the other hand, if the industrial lot doesn't develop, why would you spend the money to go out there in the first? The whole thing has got turned around from, anyway, the whole thing has got turned around. We should have gone down the course we decided to go down at the Industrial Development Committee, brought it before council, and had this discussion before council. So that's why, Mr. McGowan, if there's potential for an industrial plot out there so that we can get industrial tax dollars coming in and create jobs. I understand where Dave's going with this, but I believe it's premature to price out the water net if we don't know what the usage that's going to be out there. Unless I'm wrong, Don, is it the same amount of money to run a 12-inch pipe as a 2-inch pipe, or whatever it would be?
Believe it or not, actually, the size of the pipe, like, I mean, of course, there is a cost, but it's the excavation, the construction cost is the majority of the cost. The size of it really.
Then I stand corrected. Go ahead.
My thoughts, the more we know, the more parts of the puzzle that we can plot something realistic to, the better decisions we could make. Brock?
I think if we are looking at the costs, we're not going to take any action unless there is both industrial development and servicing the residences there. We're not going to just put a $2 million project together to service a very small residential area. It's got to be both. But we're talking now only about getting pricing.
Getting pricing.
Just by direction, Your Worship, or?
Direction, or should it be a motion?
If you like, I'll make a motion that we proceed with getting cost comparison of putting in a standalone water system versus piping from Wingham to Hutton Heights.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Anything else from council? Gary, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Reeve. Just further to our discussion about Hutton Heights, just a reminder that there is a meeting next Monday at 7 o'clock at the complex. Purpose of that meeting is to talk about future development and servicing options at Hutton Heights. Letters have been sent to Hutton Heights residents as well as the businesses, the two businesses in Hutton Heights. I've contacted my counterpart at Morris Turnberry and made her aware of this meeting, and I believe that Morris Turnberry will send their administrator and/or some elected officials to the meeting to stay informed of our discussions. The administrator also provided me with addresses of 4 residents living across the highway from Hutton Heights, and letters, invites have been sent to those residents as well. So it's a public meeting on Monday at 7 o'clock at the complex to talk about future development and servicing of Hutton Heights. Just on the code of conduct, you've been provided with 2 copies each. Please sign and submit one to the CAO clerk. Also wanted to mention that our Member of Parliament, Ben Lobb, is confirmed to attend the December 16th meeting. He will be here to celebrate the unveiling of the Town Hall. Also wanted to mention that Deb Scholdice and Marion DeVries from the Blythe Festival will be here on the 16th to provide an update from 2013 and to look ahead to 2014. They'll also be talking about renewing the Blythe marketing partnership that we have with them. Also wanted to mention that we're working with the Knights of Columbus on a renewal of their existing agreement, which expires at the end of December. Hope to bring forward some more information at the next council meeting. Just to follow up on the vote by mail alternative voting method, I was asked to see if we could have a polling station in addition to the vote by mail system. And in conferring with other clerks that have done this, they do not have another polling station, but they have it set up in such a way that people could bring their vote by mail packages to the municipal office for those who like to get in their car, go somewhere, and vote and take part in the process. So it won't be a polling station as such, but we will set it up in such a way that they'll basically be allowed to vote here at the municipal office using the vote by mail package.
What about the case where someone has been omitted from the voters list, so they don't have a package, there's no package produced for them? I know at the last election there were a couple of areas where people needed to have proxy votes, and it was quite a scramble to work out the logistics of getting that arranged. And I think this would be possibly the same kind of situation where someone is not in Wayne but in Blythe or East Palm or somewhere, and there's a distance problem and so on. How would we handle those? I guess the main question is, if there is no package for them and they want to vote, they want to make a declaration, they've got to have a place to do that.
And we would set up that facility for them on election day, for sure.
During municipal hours
Yes.
only?
Well, I think the polls closed 8 o'clock. We wouldn't have a poll, but we'd have to make some provision.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll get you a second. I also wanted to mention that we are working with Morris Turnberry and the planners from the County of Huron on an employment land strategy for both North Huron and Morris Turnberry. It's part of the comprehensive review that we've completed. Morris Turnberry has also completed a comprehensive review. Sally will be bringing forward the North Huron comprehensive review, but I think it's significant that the two municipalities and the planners and the Economic Development Department are meeting on a frequent basis now to look at all of the available properties in both municipalities to see what is developable, what is not, and basically we're looking for ways to have properties that are turnkey, that can be marketed as available commercial and industrial properties in both municipalities. It's also significant that we're the only group in the county that is meeting at the moment to do this. So we're being very, very proactive about bringing more economic development to the area. Okay, and we'll hear more about that going forward. That's all I have.
Okay. We have an in-camera session for a couple of points. And we'll go through the gallery questions and or comments right now. Luke?
I would like to ask to put the most updated version for the official plan on the website. What I pulled up tonight was live from the website, and it was the wrong version. Okay. It's just please updated.
Okay, thank you. I have to admit that I didn't pull it up digitally, so that I didn't know that, so thank you for that, and we will work on that. Trevor?
Yes, Reeve. A couple of questions. One, actually through you to Donna. With the water and sewer, that review of the rates, does that give us a comfort level of where our capital is going to be, like to make sure that we have in reserve enough to redo what we're putting through? Does it do an assessment of that?
That's actually, it will be part and parcel, but we're already going through that with our asset management plan and the replacement costs that are part of that process. So that will get incorporated into that, but a lot of that work's already been done.
And does that documentation of, because as a taxpayer, I'm putting into reserve on my water bill to fix the sewers. Right. Does that information of whether I'm putting enough money in, is that noticed public? Like, is that given out to the public to say, yeah, we're good, or no, you gotta dump another, or your rates are gonna change? Like, is that made public to them?
Well, as part of the last process that we went through, the estimated replacement cost at that time of the water and sewer system was 62 million. So they took through, and now it's 78 million. So, but anyway, so as part of that whole process from before, that's where we were way behind, and so at least that was a start. So this time, it'll be more of the same to see where that's at, for sure.
And more in the comment from Archie, Councillor McGowan's comment about timelines. Do we give our suppliers here's the deadline, you don't meet the deadline, we're deducting 5% off of your pay. Like, the fact of the matter is, if we have a deadline, I'm expecting you to meet the deadline. You don't meet the deadline, why am I paying you more, or even what you've agreed to? Again, there is circumstances where that's not easy, because things change, but more and more people, if they know that in their agreement there's a 5% reduction, if they didn't hit a timeline, I think I'm going to work extra hard to make sure I hit my timeline. So that's not really that's more of a comment, or I'm not sure that that's something that normally happens or not. So
I'll just maybe, if I could just quickly whip out. So it depends on the exactly case-by-case circumstances. Where it's a construction project or something, then absolutely there is deadlines and penalties and such in it. When we went back to the last rate study, for example, using that as a different scenario, by the time we went through all the public meetings and the availability and the advertising for those public meetings and all of that, that thing got dragged out forever, just because of we would run into one thing, so then we'd have another public meeting and those types of things. So on things that are black and white construction projects done by this date, absolutely. Some of the other things that we run into, even like look at our official plan meetings and stuff, and a lot of other things we run into, we think it's going to be done in 6 months and we push ahead to be done. But a lot of those, there's not the opportunity to deduct a penalty. So we can, we sure would.
Sure. Okay. This is a comment about the OPP model. I'm curious to see where we are, because on the news, Listowel just had on the news that they're happy about it. They're happy about the new model. So I'd be curious to see how this affects. It's obviously going to affect municipalities different, but I would be cautious to say it's going to make everybody's costs are going to go up, because even though they go up, maybe it's not necessarily a bad thing compared to what they may or may not have. So I just would be cautious of that. And the vote by mail, how do we ensure the mailing lists are accurate? Because through the conversation about this, you guys had about mailing lists were an issue, and logistically, again tonight, Brock brought up it again. Councillor Vaughn brought up about logistics. How are those two things going to be mitigated to ensure that this doesn't become a real debacle. Because it can be, based on those two things.
Well, the first thing I would say through you, Trevor, is the enumeration list. You know, I can't stress enough, the public needs to, when it gets close to the election, come in and check those lists. That's the biggest thing that fell down last time. I've been on the voters list for I don't know how long. Last time I checked the list, I wasn't there anymore. Simply because we moved houses in between, and I think that happened to a few of other councillors as well. It's really paramount that the ratepayers get in and look at those books and check those lists to make sure that they've been properly enumerated. That assists us a great deal in ensuring that people will get their packages. So that's the first thing. With the second question, that's the kind of thing that I know that Gary's going to have to look into, is how we're going to deal with that. It's not a problem if somebody's not on the voters list to come in and swear an oath and get on the list. I think we just have to figure out what the hours are going to be and make sure they're very clear to the public that they know. You know, even that night of voting, they can come in, which they should be able to, at 10 to 8 and swear an oath and still vote. So those are logistics that I think Gary will have to bring back and make sure that we're covered off then.
Okay, and the last part I had was when I read the code of conduct, I had a question about if there was a breach of it, where it allows the councillors to vote who's going to be their independent review. I am assuming, based on everything I know of boards, the person who has the actual allegement against them does not have a vote on that vote, right? Correct? Am I correct in that?
Just to be clear, so that would be, you know, in my opinion, that'd be a pecuniary interest. But the municipal act says that declaring a pecuniary interest is up to individual councillors. I think that if a member was involved, I think council would likely probably bring it to their attention and clearly outline that we thought that they, but it's, again, Trevor, it is up to them to declare.
So if they don't, and they do vote, what's the penalty? Like that's my question.
So here's the penalty. The penalty is on the municipal act. You can charge somebody with not declaring a conflict of interest.
Yes.
So a public citizen can make, into the independent investigator, which we are required to appoint, you can lodge a complaint under the municipal act.
So in this particular case, it would be, let's just for example, you've allegedly a case under the code of conduct, and then you do another case under the municipal act. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well,
if that becomes the case.
Yes,
that is a possible scenario.
Okay. Because I think that's important. I think it's important that somebody knows that when you bring up a problem, that they're not going to have the option to vote against it. Like they have to, they necessarily don't have to declare it, but if they don't, there's penalties for that as well.
Yes.
I think it's important for people to know that. Because it's not signing this and you allowing them to vote on who gets to hear it doesn't mean you get a free ride.
No,
You're not in any way, shape, or form. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Trevor.
Other questions or comments? Nothing?
Doesn't have his hat on.
I don't like to brag.
Pauline.
I have one comment. Fabulous Santa Claus parade.
Oh, good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think our congratulations go out to the Lions Club.
Yes, definitely. They did a tremendous job of having it organized. Okay. And
We win the camera.
Reach and McGowan, all in favor? Carried. Short recess.